Oh, yeah. Wow. How cool is this show? Excellent, excellent. So, me, a teenage kid in Liverpool, just an ordinary kid going to school like everybody else. And then one day I heard some music and I fell into rock and roll. Suddenly the world changed and I just felt like through a hole in time. And suddenly I was in rock and roll. But at the same time in his life, Dave did the same kind of thing. He's in rock and roll, and it's going to be his life. It's going to take over everything, and it's so magical. Everyone who knows, everyone who's connected with it, everyone who loves rock and roll, it really is a magical thing that contains so many elements, like all the people we've heard tonight. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So when that happened, and I fell into rock and roll, I joined a group, and my group was the Beatles. Dave did a similar kind of thing. He joined a group, Nirvana. We had a great time with our groups, but then eventually tragedy happened and my group broke up. Same happened with Dave. His group broke up under tragic circumstances. And so then the question is, what do you do now? In my case, I thought, well, I'll make an album where I play all the instruments myself. Dave's group broke up. What's he doing? He makes an album where he plays all the instruments himself. Do you think this guy's stalking me? Anyway, I'm gonna name my new group, and I call them Wings. Yeah. Dave's got the same problem, and he's got to think of a name for the group, so he comes up with Foo Fighters. I was just saying to them in the dressing room, guys, this is it. You're here in Cleveland, and tonight you're going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I mean, it's not just any Hall of Fame. It's the fucking Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This band is one of the greatest rock and roll bands in the world. Okay, let's rock and roll the film.
There were some people that really resented me for starting this band. How dare you start another band? They asked me, like, why did you decide to carry on and make music that sounds like Nirvana? And I said, because that's what I do. I was in that band, and like, that's what I do. What, you want me to fucking make a reggae record? When we first started this band, Pat and I had been playing in Nirvana, and when Kurt passed away, nobody could imagine playing music ever again, really. And then I realized, like, oh wait, there's healing in music. Maybe that's what's gonna make me feel better. I decided that I was gonna take my favorite songs that I had written over the last 4 or 5 years and record them at a studio down the street from my house. I play the drums first, then play guitar over it, play another guitar, play bass over it, and then you do the vocals. And that's when it gets hard. That's when it's scary. At the end of the week, I had 13 or 14 songs on a cassette, and it sounded good. And I started thinking, I won't put my name on it. People will imagine it's just a band. They won't know that it's the guy from Nirvana. There was a band in Seattle called Sunny Day Real Estate, and they were breaking up.
My band was falling apart about the same time that Dave found himself without a band. Dave just goes, "You want to be in a band?" And I was like, hell yeah, that sounds great.
The first time we played with each other, that's when I kind of knew, like, oh my God. You know, I sat in studios and heard it in front of me, but feeling it behind you is so different.
Dave brings up that he wants to have a second guitar player and he thinks it should be Pat Smear, who I knew from him having played Nirvana and having been in the Germs.
Pat is from this legendary punk rock band called the Germs that we all grew up listening to. There was no one more badass than the Germs. Germs didn't give a fuck. The first tour that we did, we played 6 shows a week, and Foo Fighters were making, I think, $500 a night.
As the tour was going on, the venues were getting bigger, and they started having that really nice but weird sort of pressure.
Making their television debut, ladies and gentlemen, Foo Fighters.
The Foos go full throttle every time. There's this intense sense of play, and it's infectious.
It's pure, unadulterated rock and roll. It's emotional, it's melodic, it's rage. It's just fun. Like, it just makes you feel good.
There were some songs that we just started writing and throwing into the set.
I heard Foo Fighters drummer has left the band.
Around that time, Taylor's playing drums with Alanis Morissette, and she was blowing up.
I called Dave myself and I said, I'm your drummer. You know, Alanis is a solo act and this is a band, and I love your band, and I want to play hard rock.
Taylor's in that John Bonham school of drummer. Not the persnickety stuff, but the basic fundamental where every time it sounds very important.
Taylor has the toughest job because he's the drummer in a band that includes the greatest drummer alive. And he's got technique that Dave only dreams about.
So now Taylor's in the band. Right when we're about to go out and start our tour, like, Pat quits the band.
Pat says, I gotta leave the band.
What?
Like, why?
I don't want to go out on another bazillion show tour. I'm older and I'm lazier.
We had to have open auditions for a guitar player.
We wound up in this rehearsal space, and I just remember this line of guitar players.
The phone rang and it was Dave and Taylor, and they said, all right, you got the gig. We start rehearsing tomorrow. Say goodbye to your friends. You're not going to see anybody for the next year.
When you get tapped to be the lead electric guitar player for one of the biggest rock bands, that's daunting. Those crowds, they come hungry, and you gotta feed them the riffs.
You can't deny how much they love it. The heart is there, and the heart is at the very center of what makes rock and roll rock and roll.
Sometimes things have come out of spontaneous jams, and then sometimes things get built. All my life was something that you would just have that little riff, and we just built it.
It's one of those where you go, why didn't I think of that? It's just one note. One note, dude, and it builds so much tension.
All my life, we just have to play.
Good or bad show doesn't matter. Like when you get to that part of the set, it always goes bananas.
These guys burn. They're like comets on stage, and they make you feel like the show wouldn't be good if you weren't there.
Most Foo Fighters songs are written on an acoustic guitar.
The band is 4 people, but we have this extended lineup when we do these acoustic shows with Pat Smear, our original guitar player. He's back.
Watching the Foo Fighters play live, it's like you can hear each member. You can hear what they have to say through their instrument.
The contribution that everyone makes is the reason why the band sounds like a band. I'll do demo tapes where I'll play the drums and I'll play bass, and when the band gets together, it sounds completely different.
Part of the sound of the Foo Fighters is a lot of guitars. We argue about it every time we mix a record because I always want the drums louder.
Chris has a really sharp and clean sense of melodic playing. I'm the guy that plays the rhythm sort of straight up the middle. And then over here, there's Pat, and it's like when Pat puts on a guitar, it just goes... All of those things, if they're balanced, it sounds like Foo Fighters. underdogs because we've always been a little bit outside of cool. And I'm proud of that.
There will probably always, to some extent, be that feeling of like, this could all end tomorrow.
Like, I've had people say in interviews, what is it like to be a rock star? I'm like, I'm not a rock star, I'm a musician.
I go to work and I just fucking laugh all day and play great music. It's a privilege as much as a job. I'm an adult that plays in a rock band.
Everything that I feel is real for. Anything that I feel is good for.
That first cassette, made in 5 fucking days or whatever. And here we are. It's like, whoa.
All the fuck in this band is this fucking big. Can you tell me that?
Ladies and gentlemen, the incredible Foo Fighters!
What kind of another confession to make? I'm your fool. Everyone's got the chains to break. Only you. Were you born to resist? Won't be of use. We're so walking in the dance, the dance, the dance, the dance of you. We're so walking in the dance, the dance, the dance, the dance of you. Are you gone and on to someone new? I needed somebody else.